Hello, I'm Micah Granderson, and I'm going to be telling you a little bit about my growing up on the Yongsan Post in Seoul, Korea. I first came to Yongsan when I was about age 6, and I left for the last time at age 17. And we weren't there the whole time. My father was an engineer and civilian, and he would go from different bases, different posts, and but we actually ended up going back to Yongsan quite a bit. And in fact, I spent 5 of my teenage years there, so it figured into my life in a big way. First time we came there, I think it was about 1987, and I was just very young, and went to the Seoul American Elementary School for a while. It's a little hard to describe. I tried to kind of summarize all those times and all those experiences and kind of what it all meant to me, but I'll try to just tell you a few select things about it. Probably looking into a military post like that, you kind of think of just soldiers exercising and doing military things, but for those of us who lived there, it was our community. That was a group of people that that was our little town. In fact, there were a lot of Korean nationals worked on the post, and a lot of American civilians, a lot of Korean soldiers who were embedded with the U.S. military, the Katusas, and then of course all the American soldiers. All the military kind of rotated a lot. They would come and go very quickly. Sometimes up to 3 years, but usually 1.5 years, sometimes less. So in a way, it was actually the Korean civilians and American civilians. It kind of felt like to me, anyways, from a community perspective, that kind of manned the ranch. We were the ones who were there and stayed there and kind of welcomed everybody and said goodbye again. So all the children of military would come and go very quickly. We kind of greet them and say, "Hi, this is the post. Let's show you around and where to go get stuff." And when I was a teenager, it was just like a gang of us, we're a bunch of kids, and we just kind of all show up on the post. Some people actually lived on Yongsan, but that was a little bit rare. It was a very, very busy post with not much housing. They built more later. They built some big skyscraper style housing units. But a lot of people lived over in Han Village, or just lived off post, which is what we always did. We always lived off post. But we all come on the post and just start walking around, looking for your friends and who was where and who was doing what. And all those little memories you have of growing up in a place, you kind of like would associate with like small town America, or those all happened on that post for me. It was all the friends you hung out with, the times you learned things, or did a little bit of growing up, or you fell in love, or got your heart broken. For me, it all happened there on Yongsan. Some of my favorite places around there were the library. I've written a lengthy bit about that. It was a strangely good library for such a small, or for being a military post library, which are typically they're kind of small. But I remember I actually spent hours there because my mother kind of used that as the base for where she'd put all of us kids. We had a large family, and she'd go off shopping and running all the errands. So basically, if you didn't want to run around all over the post, then you waited for her at the library. And I dreamed about all kinds of things, stuff I wanted to do when I was older, and how to make fireworks, or how to fly an airplane, or anything else. I just remember spending hours and hours and hours in that library, and going up and asking the Korean workers who worked there to help me research topics and find books on things, and piling up books and taking them home. And I wasn't so good at bringing them back, but they were pretty forgiving. I would bring back, we'd pile all the books in the back of the van and pull up to the library and throw them all in. And there were a lot of them. But luckily they're very forgiving with us, so they didn't give us a hard time about that. Let's see. I wrote also about the video games on the post. It was during the 80s and 90s, and back then consoles, home game consoles weren't that good. So you could kind of have a better game experience if you played in one of those big arcade cabinets. And it turned out to be a big moneymaker, I guess, for the base with all the soldiers there. So they had them all over the base. They were just crammed into every single corner. And of course, being a teenager, I loved it. It was so much fun. I kind of think of that as sort of being the soundtrack to Yongsan, was just walking through buildings and hearing all the clash and bang of all those video games going on. I went back recently, and it's all gone. I guess the whole game consoles kind of caught up, and and that's not really a thing anymore, having all the game consoles in every single building. I also like the Moyer Rec a lot. It was a arts and crafts place. It was right there at the bus station. It was where all the buses from all the bases would pull in, so it's kind of nice because it kind of feeds soldiers and civilians into that facility. And they had like making model airplanes and a woodworking shop. And my brother and I got into photography, and they had a photo lab there. A very nice photo lab. It was very, very big and had a lot of you could do slides and color work and do black and white work. And we'd spend hours there. Of course, you had to go through the whole process of the chemicals, and we'd bring our friends there, and we'd just take a camera out and shoot up a roll of film for no particular reason. We have all these pictures still laying around of us just like clowning around for no reason because we were trying to fill a roll of film so that we could develop it and do the lab work. My sister actually took some of those and like made a gallery around her house. And it cracked me up so much because it's like a very strange gallery of teenage kids in black and white doing nothing in particular, like flexing their arms in front of a random building or something, because that's what those photos were from. But I remember Mr. Park. He was a very sweet guy, and he kind of had sort of an uncle or sort of older brother kind of attitude towards me and my brother, and he'd always kind of help us out and show us how to do different chemical process and everything for the film. And we actually, they had a photo contest. The Korean American Friendship Association organized it. And it was pretty well. It wasn't any small thing. It was a lot of professional photographers from on base and off base. All the people who were seriously into it would enter this thing. And I decided I wanted to enter it. I was like 15 at the time, and I'm competing with. I got a little snapshot camera. I'm competing with all these guys who have like massive cameras, big telephoto lenses, and the whole gear and everything. But I took a very fun little shot of my brother trying to shave with a fork, standing next to my dad, who was shaving with a razor like normal. And I think I was kind of inspired by Norman Rockwell. Kind of had a little kind of quality to it. And I remember Mr. Park said, "Oh, this is good. This is good." And he actually took. I have to kind of give credit to him that he was probably the one who he showed me how to like get it, get the contrast just right and get the kind of shape the light around the place of interest. But I actually won a prize. I got like it was an honorable mention or something like that. It was but there was a lot of guys in there with all the massive camera gear who we were around in the lab every day, who didn't get a single photo in, and so I was still to this day I always kind of think back on that. That was quite an amazing experience. Kind of being tutored by somebody, being mentored, and kind of seeing how that hard work paid off. There was a community theater on the base. It was called the Performing Arts Center. There's a man running it by name of Larry Chandler, and I just saw that he passed away just recently. I was so sad because I wanted to go back and tell him how much he meant to us. But he was a super sweet guy. He was just kind of real quiet and mellow, but when he kind of took the stage, he would direct all the plays there, and he loved the craft. He loved doing that community theater, and it was kind of he would put on a show every year. That's how I first became aware of it. I was just back when I was just a little kid in elementary school. Then he was producing like one play a year that was just for the kids in the school. They put it on, bring all the kids over from the school and show it to them. So it was like Snow White and Seven Dwarfs or something like that. Some adults from the base would get together and perform it. But he also put on throughout the year he put on 6 or 7 productions, which was a pretty brisk schedule for community theater. I remember did Music Man, Gramercy Ghosts, Little Mary Sunshine, all these little old Broadway plays and off Broadway stuff. And it was just in a military environment like that. It was just this little strange kind of magical place. It had like a costume loft with Roman suits of armor and togas hanging up, and a whole group of like the little German outfits or what have you. It's like this, and every year they put on so they do some staples like they do Scrooge every Christmas. Yeah, but so that really meant a lot. And the same thing there, where I kind of wanted to, I was kind of enthralled with the theater, or with my brother and I would do all these little. We were kind of known amongst the teenagers as being the two boys with the video camera. We'd always go around and make all these silly videos, parodies, and everything, and edit them together. We'd kind of it's kind of our way of sort of introducing ourselves and getting a gang of friends around us, so we can invite people. Say, hey, can you be part of our video? We need one more bad guy or one more Bond girl, but he kind of took me under his wing and just gave me little jobs to do around the theater. So some of the other adults there's a woman named Miss Jane Evans, and she actually had worked studied theater professionally, and so but they didn't give me much because I was just a kid. But they let me like run the lights or run the audio or something for one of the productions, and I remember kind of having that sense of just having this ownership of this really important part of the show or something, and kind of doing some growing up and learning some lessons doing that. I'm trying to think of anything else to share about it. It's just I remember so many times just kind of going onto the base, and during the winter it'd be kind of cold and chilly, everybody wearing their jackets, but during the summer it just starts to kind of glow, all the trees would come out in full leaf, and just the smell of the grass and the the sunlight would be dancing, and there'd be a block party somewhere, and you smell the barbecue grills, and we kind of had all these little back routes, that we knew how to get around the base, how to get from place to place, and there was a Christian Bible study that was formed by somebody at the church, and for some reason or other, it really took off, and pretty much it seemed like all the teenagers on the base were going to it, and they used to hold it. The idea was that it would be held in a different person's house every time they held it. They'd have somebody else would volunteer their house to be the next location for it. And so we come on the base, towards the evening, and somebody say, "Oh, it's over in this part of the base, so go this way, and it's building such and such." And we'd start walking towards, weaving all of our little back routes, and on the way you'd start meeting all your other friends. They're all heading the same way, and you'd start kind of forming up into a group. And by the time you got there, the meeting got so big that there really wasn't any room. There wasn't enough room for it. So, these little military housing units. And so I remember that we'd all start cramming in there. But it was part of the fun of it. We'd all people were sitting on the sofa and sitting on the back of the sofa in front of the sofa. Then more people come in, and they'd have to actually sit underneath the dining room table. And more people start sitting all the way up the stairs, and people sitting around the corner in the kitchen. And somebody'd have a guitar, and they start playing songs, and everybody starts singing. And then at the end of it, we'd all kind of file out and break up into various groups and kind of disintegrate back across the base, walking together and talking about life and what we wanted to do in the future. And of course, Yongsan, it was kind of this little community, but embedded in this big city of Seoul, Korea. And we had a lot of fun. You could get on the subway and go to a theme park, so that happened sometimes. We just tell a friend, like, hey, I want to go to Seoul Land today, and yeah, we'd all just get on the subway and head off. And I was actually, when I was I guess I would have left there when I was left the States for the first time when I was age 6, and I think that I kind of think back on it sometimes, like kind of how simple life would have been if I had stayed there in Montana as a little kid and growing up in that Montana community, versus going to Korea and being a part of this much larger world, another country, another community of people, and it'd be the kid that could get out on the subway and ride to a theme park with his friends because you just decided to do that morning. That's pretty. And we started having a lot of Korean friends. It's a little funny in Korean society though than high school. It's really intense. So actually, we had a couple of really good friends who were teenagers like us. But it's awfully hard to get them anywhere because the poor kids had to study so much. Their parents they're really excited for us to be friends, but they'd be kind of like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, he has to study. He can't go out with you." So actually, we kind of started making more friends in college, and we were still teenagers, but we were meeting Korean friends who were in college because for whatever reason they always seem to have a little more time. I don't know if they were bad students but they didn't seem to mind skipping classes and going places with you. so we started having a whole gang of friends, and of course the Korean friends could get you more places and do more things. So before we always kind of had to sit and wait for all the movies to kind of come and go from the military theater. But with our Korean friends, they knew exactly like where all the out in town theaters were that had the first runs, and where all the cheapo second and third run theaters where you know you could go to and catch a film there. Yeah, just getting around. We came with some crazy idea. The movie Titanic came out, and we were so excited about it, we decided that we had to make our own version of Titanic. And so we actually asked the pastor of our church if we could use the baptistry to film an underwater scene. And he was cool enough, he said yes. And so we we got the yes. We didn't fully describe what we wanted to do. We actually filled the baptistry up with water, and then went down and to the nearby playground and poured a bunch of sand in it to make the ocean floor. And our Korean friends helped us locate like these specialty model shops that sold like all the stuff that they use for architectural construction, you know, for making models. And we made a very, very detailed model Titanic on the ocean floor. And then we stuck our camera inside of a Tupperware container and floated it back and forth, you know, looking at it like a submarine underwater. And the footage was quite impressive. Of course, it's very old. It was filmed on a little analog camera, but it looked pretty cool. But we were nice enough. We cleaned it all up. I still remember. I kind of regretted putting so much sand in, and we had to vacuum it all back out. But yeah, there are other things too. You know, I mentioned earlier Miss Jane Evans. She was the one who was part of the community theater and was a professional trained theater person. And you know, and the fact that we met was thanks to the military being on a base where you know, she'd been in Hollywood. She studied in California theater schools, and of course we would never met if we weren't over there. I remember when I was in third grade, I think. I mean, it was first grade. I guess it would have been first grade. Yeah, it's the first time we were in Yongsan. Then I was in the youth center, and suddenly a bunch of kids, a little older than me, maybe third, fourth grade, came in, and they had a big boombox on their shoulder. And I was like, what are these guys doing? Like, they get this boombox, and it's just playing loud music, and they set it down, and they all start dancing around it, you know, in a circle. And then after a while, they pick it up, and they walk back out into the parking lot, and they set it down out there, and they dance around it again. And then they go down a little further, and then they come back into the building, and they set it down in the building and dance around it again. And I was, you know, and I was a little confused. I was like, oh, what are they doing? Like, is everybody just letting them do that? Is this a group or a thing, you know? But I didn't realize, of course, that was the earliest stages in the early to mid 80s of the hip hop and R&B movement, you know, which has had an amazing, profound effect on American music. And I didn't know I had a front row seat to it back then, and that most certainly wouldn't have happened in Montana. But being in Yongsan, and there were kids from all over, you know, so they brought it with them, and I got to see it right back then in the 80s when it was just yeah, I don't know if I have no idea if it ever made it to Montana at all, but but I got to see it when it was just like you know, mid 80s, and everything was new. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe with all this prattling on, you get a little bit of the picture of the way I see and feel about my growing up on Yongsan. But yeah, it's a special part of me, and you know, I guess some people are kind of have that little small town they grew up in, and they feel very dear about it. Mine's a military base, for better or worse. I can't, you know, I actually can't visit it right now. I'm a civilian. But sometimes I've gone and people have checked me in, but I kind of locked out of my memories, you know, like I can't go see them anymore. So but that's life. That's the way it goes. But anyways, hope you found this interesting, and yeah, thank you so much.